Welcome to Obsession Engineering for Franco's Fireblade Superstock build. So this is going to be Franco's Superstock race bike, and it is, if we're going to use all the letters, a CBR 1000 RR R SP 30th Anniversary Special Edition. Have you got all that? The task for today is that me and Pete, who is obviously my spannering accompaniment in the team, we're going to be taking the bike apart, stripping the bodywork off it, connecting the battery up, giving it basically a PDI, getting the bike running, and then we can send it back to Honda Racing at Louth to get running on the dyno. So here we go, we have lovely, shiny, glossy, sparkly Honda bodywork. This is the special edition one because this is what Honda sent through to be converted into race bikes. So it's all very, very, very nice. We've got a number top yoke, we have Öhlins forks, there's an Öhlins shock in the back of it. It's all lovely. And what we're going to do is take lots of it apart and only really keep using some of it. Sounds about right, doesn't it, Pete?
Yeah, engine out, Dave.
Not today, though.
No, not today.
No, not today.
No, there will be engine out very shortly. Honda left a screw out there, look.
They have, yes. Yeah, don't worry, it is in the box of bits to PDI.
Mind you, they won't be staying on anyway, Dave, will they?
No, they probably want to be on for the dyno, though.
Yeah, we better stick them on then. Right.
Yeah, I'll get the super...
Let's crack on, we've got lots to do, Dave.
We have. I'll get the hammer and the super glue, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
We do have a special guest in the workshop today, and not just Pete. This is Stuart, and Stuart is a photographer who Bike Magazine have sent because Franco's Fireblade is going to be in Bike Magazine as well. Because Pete writes his article in Bike Magazine, we had a load of coverage last year for Franco, and so this is basically the continuation of Pete's story and Franco. So Stuart is just setting up his lights and stuff, but he has just insulted my camera. In the Mick Dundee style, apparently this isn't a camera, but his is. So let's go full geeky, Stu. What is it?
Nikon D810, which is 36 megapixels.
Yeah, that's quite big, isn't it?
Does it do film?
It did do film, yeah.
I'm guessing that's probably slightly more expensive as well.
I don't know how much that thing is.
This was about 500 quid.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Yeah. So Stuart's getting photos of me and Pete with the bike, and then the bike on its own, and we'll turn it around a minute so we can get photos of the other side, and then he'll be taking some sort of detail shots of the bits we're going to change, which is going to include footrests, rear sets, chain and sprockets, handlebars, all the kit electronic stuff will be going onto it, exhaust system, suspension internals, rear shock, and of course all the bodywork. So a few minutes work when we get all the bits, which we're all waiting for.
This is the stuff that Matt's had to remortgage his house for. HRC loom. I bet they don't come cheap, Dave.
No. You're going to have to buy a lot of packets of cornflakes for that.
Yes, yeah, you are. HRC loom. And a manual, which I do not believe you told me costs 100 quid.
Near enough.
You're joking. I'm not. No way. No way. Anyway, that's it is. Look, HRC, which is everything's HRC in here. Look, HRC. It's really.
Who has CDs nowadays?
Well, I do actually, Dave. Like a good CD. Oh, that is shark fin. HRC shark fin. You don't see many of them, boy, do you? There's a throttle in here. There's bit cables and bits we don't even know what we've got. That's a protector. Is that the rear brake protector?
I think that's a bracket for mounting the IMU on, maybe.
Oh, right.
Maybe. I'm not really sure. I haven't read the book yet.
No, we haven't read the book. In here is a very expensive ECU.
That is expensive.
HRCU. So that's very expensive. More of the bits. A wheel in here. So, again.
Yeah, so we've got...
How many wheels have we got, Dave?
We've got 2 pairs of spare wheels in boxes.
Right.
So we've got the stuff out the bike.
Levers. Yeah. So that's very handy when Franco Bourne crashes. We're going to have a few parts. We've got more parts upstairs. basically put out Matt's back, broke his bank account buying all this stuff, but that's racing for you, isn't it?
Do you know what, Pete? I'm pleased I'm not paying for this.
Well, yeah, me too, but hey boy, it's got to be done. If our man's going to be up the front, we've got to have it, we've got to have the right stuff to repair it and get ready and get going. Sure. You're going to start this afternoon. Me and my mate Tone's going to clear off, and we've done all the glory bit, the camera work and all the rest on it. So yes, so carry on, Dave, carry on.
Will do, Pete, will do. So now that the photographer's gone, and unfortunately Pete's had to leave as well, he will be back when we're doing some of the more technical stuff so that we can both learn our way through the bike. But I am on my own for a bit, which means it's time for me to crack on and get this bike stripped down. Cue the time lapse.
Taking the fairings off a modern sports bike is a faff. There is an ongoing challenge from the manufacturers to make it as awkward as possible. I think it's some sort of in-game. The Fireblade turns out to be no different. The fasteners are really nice, the bike's bolted together incredibly nicely. It's a faff to take apart.
Because it's a Honda and because it's new, I did not think for a minute that this fairing would just slip off nice and easily, and I was correct. So looking at the belly pan, I've got the bolts out of there, the little bolts out here, and the bolts are nice quality. Like, this thing is nicely put together. But I've got all the bolts out, I've got all the little clip retainers that sort of push into the panels, but then the panels are like linked together, they're like clipped together in here as well. Probably that, well, there we go, look. Right, so I managed to not quite break that panel because everything ties into these little slots and bits. So it is a little bit of a just sort of wiggle and pull things and hope you don't pull it hard enough to break it. I can't wait to get race fairing on this. Road panels are blooming awkward.
If the belly pan was the appetizer, the side panels are very definitely the main course, and they are not tasty to take off. There are screws, there are little push pins, there are little clips on the panels that are incredibly delicate and slide together in a very specific way, and none of these things I have the instructions for. Somewhere in Japan, I suspect there is an engineer giggling to himself that he's made something this complicated to take apart. It looks lovely when it's on the bike, but part of me wants to beat him around the head with a shoe. There is the added challenge as well that we want to sell these panels at some point, so I don't really want to be breaking the tabs off them. Oh, what fun.
Nose cone, all the top fairing, all the side panels and belly pan are off, but I'm leaving the headlights on because we're going to the dyno next, and because it's Euro 5, if I disconnect the headlights, I'm sure it will ping up a warning light on the dashboard because modern bikes do that sort of annoying thing. So I'm leaving the headlights on, and they are also sort of forming a little bit of the air scoop, so they can stay on for now, but I've got the expensive, easy to damage painted stuff off. So the next thing I need to do is move down. I'm going to take that cover off, the trim panels down here, all the seat unit panels, the horrendous hanger on here. I'm not sure whether I'll have to leave the tail light in or not, again for Euro 5 warnings on dashboard. I might disconnect it and see what happens. Right, this is of course a keyless bike, so it is keyless apart from the fact it's got a key. If you're going to make things keyless, how about actually making them without a key? I'm sure there's a man somewhere in Japan with a weird, slightly dark sense of humour, because some of the clips to take the side panel bits off are here and down here, because you'd put the clips inside underneath stuff behind wiring because you just can. Don't get me wrong, when the bodywork is on the bike it looks really nice because you've only got these tiny little these tiny little headed screws, which are, I mean, that's a nice screw, that's a nice fastener, said the geek. But yeah, the actual fasteners, you don't see many of them, and they're tucked away and they're just delicate and I like them, but when you have to take the panels off, there's just little bits here, there and everywhere. This is the battery out of the Honda, and it's a little lithium-ion jobby, and I've just weighed it. It is 658 grams, and a quick Google search tells us that this genuine from Honda, is £373.70. Nearly 400 quid for a battery. It's ridiculous. Obviously there is a Honda markup on that, because you can go and buy a patterned version of it for 110. I mean, I've bought a lot of lithium batteries in my time. That is a lot of money. But never mind, we already own it, so it's not a problem. So the next thing I'm going to do is drop that in the hole, connect the cables up to it, and then we'll see if we've got any power. So if we go down here, the ignition switch is down the side here, which so. Right, the exhaust flapper valve servo, everything under the seat is very loud, and I'm not going to press the start button yet because I haven't checked the oil level, which is probably worth doing, so I'll just turn that off for a minute. I said I'll just turn that off for a minute. Why isn't that turning off? Oh! I assume that was the steering lock to turn that. Or is it? If I put it in lock, does that lock the steering? I don't understand. It's got a picture of a lock on it. Do I hold it in place? Yes! That's the steering lock on. Right. Can you tell I've not read the manual yet? I have already checked the water, and there is water in it, so that's okay. So the next thing I need to do is check the oil. But to check the oil, I really need to put a front paddock stand in it to get the bike level. Now I have a bit of a thing where a sight glass is just easier than a dipstick, especially when you're filling oil up, because you can actually see the amount going into it. So, right, come on, come on, come on. So just dip the dipstick in without screwing it in, and the oil comes up to here, which is quite a long way above the maximum mark. But this came from the factory like that, so I'm guessing when we actually start it up, it'll move quite a lot of oil around the engine, and then it won't be overly full. So I'll screw that back in there. I'm pleased that it has oil in it. Plenty of oil in it. So we'll screw that down there, and then I suppose we can see if we can make it start. I nearly forgot to mention the toolkit. Tucked up under the pillion seat, there is the toolkit in a rather fetching sort of purple packet that doesn't quite match the purple of the paintwork. And if we open this, it's a very extensive toolkit. Ta-da! 2 Allen keys. A 3 and a 5mm Allen key. And that's it. So now for the exciting bit, we're going to start the Honda, hopefully, for the first time ever. And I promise you, this is stone cold. No TV stuff here. Hands on the header pipes, they are absolutely stone cold. I assume these get run in the factory for a short period of time to check they work, because there is a bit of colour in the header pipes. So I'm guessing they do literally a few hundred RPM or a couple of thousand RPM sort of test run to make sure it actually works. I know Triumph do that sort of thing, so I assume Honda do. Right, let's go down here. Dashboard pressed. Really loud exhaust servo valve motor. And let's see what happens. What I want is that to go off pretty much straight away. That's the fuel pump priming. Button pressing. Right, turns out that incredibly small battery is too small to start the bike. Brilliant! Let's try that again now we've got a bit of charge in the battery. So, ignition on, slightly deafened by the exhaust valve, and petrol. Petrol's the other thing we need. I knew I was forgetting something. I'm beginning to not quite understand why you have a keyless bike when I need the key again. I mean, it's a big key and you're going to have to carry it everywhere with you, so why not just have somewhere to put it, like in there? I don't understand why you'd get rid of it. Anyway, put that in the pocket, try and lose it later. Right, ignition on. Aha, right, the fuel pump sounds a little bit happier this time because it's got something to suck. Right, third time lucky. We have life! It is alive! Alive, I tell you! Right, oil pressure light went out straight away, which is a good thing. Nothing else on there I really care about at this stage, so that can tick over a little bit. I've made sure the door is open so I'm not gassed, and I've basically just put a smoker sheet in the workshop. It's a little bit steamy. So I'm going to let it basically have a heat cycle, then I'll turn it off, check its fluid levels again when it's cooled down, and I'd say that's about ready for the dyno. It's a full geek moment. The thermostat on this opens fully at 88 degrees. On my ZX6 from 2004 it opens at 65 degrees, and this is the march of emissions rules. Basically, the hotter the engine burns, the cleaner the emissions, so the hotter the water is and all the rest of it. I've now run the bike up to temperature. I've had the fan kick in and out, the fan kick in and out a couple of times, just to make sure everything's basically as hot as you can get it at standstill. And I'm going to let it cool down before I check oil levels and bits in the morning. It's a bit of a sponsor plug. This is being run by the Marvel HCL Motorsports team, and Matt from the team has done a brilliant job of supplying us the bikes and bits, so I get something to build, you get something to watch, and Franco gets something to go and crash. If you would like to be involved in the team and involved in Franco's future, we would love to take your money off you. So I've put a link in the description for an email to Matt, and you can talk to him about the wonderful opportunities we have available. There will be one more thing to do before we take it to the dyno, and that will be to take this pristine brand new rear tyre off that has actual value and put on a quite hard compound like road tyre that I've got that's a part 1 just for dyno use, so we don't just wear out the middle of this one. I'd done most of the dyno prep, but now that I'm back at Honda Racing in Louth, Harry is doing the last little touches. He is having to get to some of the wiring for the ECU so that he can pick up an RPM signal and a throttle position signal. He has to do this because the running in procedure for these Fireblades for racing is very specific. So, for example, we're going to start off at 4,000 RPM at 10% throttle opening, which should give a 38.5 Newton meter torque output. And we're going to do that for 15 minutes, and we're going to move on to 6,000 RPM, 20% throttle, and then obviously a Newton meter output. And we're doing this all the way up the rev range, and obviously having more throttle opening as we go up. And then by the time we're finished, we should have a nicely run-in bike, and hopefully, if the tyre's still happy, a cheeky little power run to see what she's doing. Right, I think we're about ready. Let's get her fired up, make some noise. So at the moment we're on 8,000 RPM, 62, 63 Newton meters of torque, and that will give him the correct throttle position, so he's got the correct load on it, and we have the countdown timer as well. So we've got just over 9 minutes of the 8,000 RPM thing left to go. Then we'll move on to the 10,000, and after the 10,000 we can have a go and see how much power it makes. With about 3 minutes left of our 10,000 RPM run, Harry now realised the back tyre didn't feel right and was beginning to smell. The game with the running in procedure we're using here is you're on quite a lot of static load for a reasonable length of time, and so it generates a lot of heat in the tyre. And even though I put a hard compound road tyre on that I thought would survive okay, it hasn't really done the job. So luckily I noticed that before it got really exciting, but that is goosed. So we now have a slick that the boys had luckily already fitted to a wheel for such purposes in the back of the bike, and that is actually it's a road racing slick, so it's probably a Northwest 200 tyre or something like that that's actually designed to have a really hard centre for extended periods flat out down to the university straight at Northwest or something. So hopefully that'll do, so we can get the last little bit of running in done on this bike, hopefully a power run, and then we'll see what she's doing. That is the running in procedure now completed, but it would be nice to get a power run out of it and see what it does. So running in was absolutely no problem at all, and the joys of doing it on a torque value, we could get all the information we needed. But it turns out when we went for a power run, that didn't go quite as well, because the bike's either in a limp mode because it's on the dyno, or it might actually have a slightly conservative setting in it because it's being run in or something. And obviously the lads there at Honda normally run them with the kit ECUs and bits on that we haven't fitted yet, because you've got to range all the wiring loom off and it's quite a lot of work. So this one currently makes a stunning 113 horsepower, but it runs perfectly well. It did all the torque output it needed to do, and so we don't actually need to know the power figure. When we get the kit ECU and loom and bits on it and the exhaust system and all the rest of it, that's when we need the power. It would just be nice to say some numbers today, but it doesn't really matter. We may not have got a fancy big power figure at the end of the day, but the important thing is that this thing is now run in. The next job is to take it even more apart and then start prepping it up properly. So we've got the kit ECU, the exhaust system, suspension, and a load of other bling to throw at it. So thank you for watching, and join me again next time when we'll have this in even more pieces.